my favorite things to complain about, to moan about, that's Metro Rail. I can't even remember how big the price tag is for it now. I think the per ridership cost is astronomical. I think everybody can be driving a Rolls Royce that rides it. Let's put that aspect of it aside. This is more of a real estate video blog, so we're going to do it, we're going to talk about the Metro Rail, but we're going to base it upon what it actually does around town, not who it carries around town.
John, why limit yourself to $1 million car when you can ride around in a $100 million train?
That's exactly right.
So you're right. Now there are a couple thoughts about rail, and we won't spin off into the discussions of whether you should run it through existing population density or if you should run it on existing tracks where population density isn't quite there yet. Let's talk about real estate development and how it's impacted by rail when it does come in.
Yeah, let's talk about the rail. I mean, it starts up here in Leander,
right.
You know, meanders down, goes into downtown Austin over by the convention center. That's
right.
where it stops right now. There's future plans for it too.
Right, so there's potentially future expansions, what might be called the Green Line that would run out to Manor and Elkin, even some expansions into South Austin.
Not that anybody's going to ride it, but what does it actually do? How does it spur economic or residential or real estate growth, and how can our investors and our listeners and subscribers, how can they take advantage of this
John,
activity?
You're going to develop an office building, okay? Where are you going to put that office building? It might be nice to put it close to where mass transit is. So you could look at where the bus stops are. That might be a place to be a good indicator of where mass transit is, except bus stops can move around, and they regularly do. Routes are changed, and they move around, so that becomes a problem.
So I could build my whole building, and then all of a sudden they move the bus stop?
That becomes a problem for you if that bus stop moves. Now, rail is not something that can be picked up and the route adjusted. Not very easily, not very cost affordably. So as an office developer, you know where that's going to be once it is in service, whether there are 500 riders or 5,000 riders.
Right, retail's the same way, office space, retail, residential.
That's right.
They know that it's going to be a fixed stop that people are going to get off.
Right, so employment will center around those stops, retail will center around those stops, and residential values will go up when new employment and new retail locate close to them. So we use these as a good indicator of where residential values can increase, and it helps our small investors take advantage of picking areas that will have some value appreciation.
You see it around town, Crestview Station, up in Leander by their rail stop. You see it around Plaza Saltillo. There is some economic growth happening there, and you kind of have a little general rule of thumb of how many blocks of walking distance it can be to really make a difference.
Yeah, it's hot here. This guesstimate can be a little bit bigger in some cooler cities, but here in Austin, the general rule of thumb is that people will walk about 8 blocks, about a quarter of a mile. So if you're within 8 blocks of whatever the desirable aspect is, train station in this example, then you'll see an economic impact to your real estate because it's an improvement to your walking radius. If you're 10 blocks out, well, you start getting into the area where you have to use a car to get to it anyway, and so the impact starts to decline. There's also what is called the L-Star rail for Lone Star.
Used to be called the ASA rail.
Used to be called the ASA rail for Austin San Antonio rail. We're calling it L-Star now because the branding people.
And that one starts up around Georgetown and goes through Austin all the way down into the San Antonio area with stops along the way.
Right. This is truly a regional rail and would have a different impact and different ridership
Think bullet trains.
Think bullet train, yes. Texas bullet train.
Maybe
So also runs on existing tracks. We have those maps here that show where the existing stops are, that or the proposed stops all along this existing rail would be for the L-Star. So point is, regionally, municipally, point is, on a regional basis as well as a municipal basis, we are starting to think about rail and mass transit, and we learned a lot from this spike in fuel prices that maybe even though we're a state of wide open places, we might start to consider other transportation options than just our pickup trucks.
Yeah, and listen, we're not telling you that the rail is good. We're not telling you it's bad. We're telling you to think outside the box a little bit as an investor. And when somebody is complaining about something, look at it from an investor's point of view, from the real estate point of view. And listen, we know people aren't probably going to be riding it anytime soon. However, there are advantages in around those stops. You might want to buy it. Think about other places in Austin. that might have some type of incentive for people to live next to them. job hubs. You know, one of our up-and-coming series is going to be about the different job hubs around Austin. You probably look around Austin, you see, well, there's jobs everywhere, where actually they're concentrated in certain areas around town, and we're going to talk about how you can take advantage of that too. Guys, thanks for joining Kevin and I today. If you have some suggestions for some things that you'd like to know about Central Texas real estate, just click on the link below and shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to talk about it. Also, remember, this is just the beginning of a series of presentations that we're going to be doing online about Central Texas real estate. And so we're going to talk about rail, we're going to talk about the highway systems, we're going to talk about the aquifer, talk about jobs, talk about sports. There's so much happening in the Austin area, and you need to be up front and ahead of that information, not behind that curve, because that's how good, solid investors make money out there. They're ahead of the curve, and they're educated about what's going on.
Yeah, John, you know, we invest ourselves and we do a lot of research for ourselves and for our clients. And we would love to hear about what you're curious about, because if you're curious about something, it means we've probably looked into it if it impacts real estate in Austin and Central Texas. So email us your questions. We'll certainly answer them right back to you, but we'll also incorporate them into one of our next segments so that other people out there that are watching can take part in learning some of the things that you're curious about.
All right, guys, thanks for watching this, and be sure and listen to the show. It's live every Sunday on News Radio 590 KOBJ and 99.7 FM.